Sedaghatfar, defense attorney of counsel to the Cochran firm. And Anahita, I'm going to start with you. Did the jury get this one right?
They got it absolutely right. Because remember, Dr. Drew, this wasn't about who did this. This was, like you said, about whether or not the jurors believed he was legally insane at the time of the killing.
Help people understand what legally insane is, because he was insane. There's no doubt about insane, well, but not legally insane.
Right. So there's a specific meaning when you say legally insane in the law. That means that the defendant didn't know the difference between right from wrong at the time of the killing. So he's mentally ill. We talked about this.
No doubt. This guy has schizophrenia. Right? He really was delusional, but he was planning a murder systematically, and that's where they're saying he knew he was doing something wrong, and he knew it for a while.
Absolutely, because if he was legally insane, it would mean that he snapped in that moment. He had a psychotic break, like maybe he heard God speaking to him in that moment, telling him to kill these people. That's not what happened. There's evidence that he planned, he plotted, he premeditated this.
And speaking of premeditated, this becomes now mitigating against the death penalty, right?
Absolutely.
You think he's going to get? Do you think he's going to get the death penalty?
I think he is going to get the death penalty, and here's why. Because number one, the mitigating factor would be he's mentally ill. The defense attorneys are going to play that up during the penalty phase. They're going to hope that the jurors sympathize with him because they're going to say he doesn't know what he's doing. He's nuts. Yeah. But you're talking about a very egregious crime. He murdered 12 people.
So that's going to go to death.
Yeah, that's
and I say the system failed this guy. I mean, he did horrible things, but I guarantee you once the truth is out about this story, we're going to hear about a psychiatrist who was desperately trying to get him placed somewhere against his will, but couldn't get the system to cooperate with her. I guarantee you we're going to hear something like that, because it was obvious. Any physician would know this guy was going to harm himself or somebody else.
Yeah, and she tried to report it. The psychiatrist tried to report this to the school. She tried to send the letters, the notebook. Nothing was done. And that goes again to the thing that you always complain about, is that physicians and doctors cannot make somebody get treatment if they don't want to get it.
And please listen to us. We know what we're talking about. I knew it when poor Bobby Christina Bound was not going to come out of her coma. That's the psychiatrist knew when this guy was going to go hurt somebody. You've got to listen to our judgment. Anahita, thank you. We're going to get back to you a little later in the program. Now, I think strangely he is creating a unity from the divisiveness.
I agree with that. I don't think there's a divisiveness. I think if anything, even if you don't agree with what he says, even if you think he's a bigot, you have to agree that he is now sparking this discussion about immigration and immigration reform in this country. That is a long overdue discussion. And you know, I'm not a huge Donald Trump fan, but I don't think he's a bigot. I don't think he was talking about all Mexicans. I think he was just addressing the fact that Mexican immigrants that come to the U.S. illegally bring certain problems to our country. That is not bigoted, in my opinion, at all. Could he have delivered it in a much
more sensitive way? Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then he wouldn't be Trump.
But then he wouldn't be Trump.
Could he have delivered it in a more articulate way? I mean, for someone who wants to
sitting
I wonder what the Native Americans would have thought of immigration if we could ask them. But Trump, Anahita, dear, I'm so happy to be next to you.
They'd ask, when are we all leaving?
No, because McCain is saying that he's stirring up the crazies in Arizona with his rhetoric.
There must be a lot of crazies, though.
But what I'm saying is,
he's very much right.
In the polls right now.
But what I've always
beating
said,
Jeb Bush. What does that say?
What I've always said is, if you want to be a Klan member, I'm cool with that. Take your hood off. He's taking the hoods off of a lot of people, because the people that are agreeing with him rote message, rhetoric.
Show you. He held a rally, though, however, in New Hampshire this afternoon.
Well, brilliant, though, because if you look at it this way, Mike, it's brilliant, because guess what? Let's assume that he doesn't really want to be the president, which I think a lot of people take that position. If he's doing this for publicity, it's working. We are talking about it.
Correct.
We've been talking about him for 2 weeks.
If he's doing
trending
it for publicity,
on the internet.
without question,
he's on social media. Hold on, guess what?
One at a time.
Guess what? This is going to translate into dollars and cents for Donald Trump, and he is going to laugh his way to the bank. All publicity is good publicity.
Mike,
that's the reality.
I don't think so.
Do you not think that he will make money off of this? Do you not think that this will?
Oh, he'll make a lot more money off this, but he can win a primary.
Drew, about the voters' mindset right now. Does that not tell you, when he is leading Jeb Bush among Republican voters, what does that tell you? I think people are sick of this administration.
Jeb Bush isn't saying anything. Well, none of the other people are saying anything.
That's not true.
In the absence of any logical rhetoric, you will follow madness.
But that's actually not true. Jeb Bush has been talking about immigration because he is married to a Hispanic woman.
But
that's been part of his platform.
But he didn't do it. I am saying part of the population. That's what scapegoating coming in.
I'm giving credit to the American people. I think
don't
part
ever
of
give the American people credit for knowing their own minds. They follow people. They're following a demagogue.
These are the voters, though. These are the voters, and I think part of it could be, Dr. Drew, people are tired of politics as usual.
Yes.
He is
right.
refreshing. He's telling it like it is. He's not beholden to any, big powers or
Right.
or,
He's free. He's
hats.
free to say what he
And listen, and isn't that, and isn't,
They're ready for change.
there's
People
something more than that.
Ben.